It's July 10th, which is it's July 10th, 2022, which is Ronnie James Dio's 80th birthday. So I thought I would record my best Ronnie James Dio story and tell it to you. So I was at the Gavin conference in 1993, and I was presenting because I was music director at KAOS Olympia at my college radio station. And I was speaking on, it was a college radio panel at the Gavin convention, and I had like a 12-pack of like Miller Lights, and I had walked around with a microphone like Donahue or Oprah, and I would people would stand up and ask questions, and then I would throw them a beer if it was a good question, and then we had a panel. It was great. And I was just sort of moderating this college radio panel, and I forget, they had a catchy name, sort of like, how indie is your college radio station on a scale of 1 to 10 or something like that. It was more indie than now kind of stuff that we were doing. So anyway, at the same time, when I looked at the program and I got scheduled to be in this thing, when I looked in the program, I saw that Ronnie James Dio was giving was on another panel at the exact same time as mine. And so like, I wanted to go to his panel more than I wanted to moderate mine. Right. So, but I couldn't because I was working. So I actually, before that day, so the day before we got there, I was in San Francisco. I went to, Amoeba, I think. Yeah, it was Amoeba on Haight Street. And the only thing that I could get there, or the coolest thing that I could get there, was a Ronnie James Dio. It was an Elf first album on CD. So, and if you don't know, Dio was in Elf. It was like his first band before he was in Rainbow and Black Sabbath and all that stuff. So, it wasn't his first band, but it was his first commercially successful band. And unless you don't think being a totally underappreciated band on a major label, buried, and nobody's helping you, unless you consider that to not be successful, which I wouldn't blame you if you did. So anyway, I get this Elf CD. And it was a CD. Like, I looked at the vinyl, I couldn't find anything. I got this Elf CD. I had it in my bag, and my plan was I'm going to end my panel early. So I'm standing there with the microphone. I'm like throwing beers out to people. It's going great. And then I'm like, hey, does anybody want to moderate this panel? Because I got to go meet Ronnie James Dio. I got to leave early because I figured he would just split, right? Like right after his panel. So I didn't want to miss him. And so I got a recruit from out of the audience. I gave him the microphone. I'm like, here, run the panel for the last 15 minutes. And then it was all the way at the other side of the convention center. So me and my friend Sue, who was hanging out with me and wanted to see what was happening and how this was going to go down, we go running across the convention center. And I've got my bag with my Elf CD in it. And we're running across, and it takes us like 8 or 9 minutes to get there. And so we get there, and the panel is already over, right? So I was like, oh no, like, is he still here? And I'm looking around, and I look, and I found him, right? And he was talking to somebody else, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be that guy, so I'm gonna like approach cautiously. I'm going to wait for my moment, and then I'm going to just cruise right in and try to make it as natural as possible. And so he's talking to this other person, and they kind of wrap their thing up, and then he's sort of like, looks like he's getting ready to kind of jet. And I'm like, oh, hey, Mr. Dio, hey, my name's Matt. I'm the music director at KAOS Olympia. And yeah, I had a panel at the same time as yours. I ran all the way over there. He's like made a comment about how he's like, Matthew, you look a little, are you nervous? Like you look a little sweaty. I'm like, no, actually I ran to get here. I'm not nervous at all. But I mean, if I said that, it was a lie. But anyway, I'm like, I'm sweating because I ran, right? He kind of laughed about that. And so we're sitting there and I was like, hey, how'd your panel go? And he was like, oh, it was great. It was really good, you know. And he's like, just kind of starts chatting with me, engaged with me about just these stupid small talk questions that I was asking him. And then I just kind of went for it. And I'm like, hey, I've got this CD. And he just immediately stopped me. And he was like, where did you find that? And I was like, oh, well, I bought it at Amoeba, you know. And he's like, I've never seen this. I've never seen this album on CD before. It's like, this is really cool. He's like, I don't even have one of these. This is awesome. So he's looking at it. He's checking it out. And and then I'm like, hey, well, I know you're working on a new record and you're in the studio right now. And I was like, do you make records differently when you know that they're going to just go right to CD? Like you used to make music in the studio that you knew was only going to go to albums and cassettes, and like now you're making it for CDs. Like, did it change your process, you know, or do you think differently about the creative process? And he just kind of takes a deep breath and he looks at me and he says, Matt, when Henry Ford invented the car, people didn't stand around on the side of the road and look at the car go by and watch the cars go by and say, gee, I really wish I could get into a horse-drawn carriage. Did they, Matt? Did they? I was like, probably not. He goes, okay, well then get in the car, Matt. Get in the car. And then he took my CD and he took the booklet out and he scribbled on some stuff and he wrote, to Matthew, magic, Ronnie James Dio. So that's my Dio story. Happy birthday, Ronnie. And love you forever, buddy. All right.